place. That's why I call it just a horrible vortex, because there was a male spirit who was really not nice and quite evil.
We are going to be discussing earthbound spirits. We're going to be talking about who this beautiful, wonderful woman is, what she does, her experience with them, who she is as far as like her history and everything, and then she's going to talk about her experience with it's a pretty famous, right, place in Delaware. So, why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself and like your gifts?
So I was born in Kenya in East Africa, and I moved to the U.S. in 1999. I actually moved, of all the states in the United States, I moved to the state of Delaware in 1999, and ended up going to the University of Delaware, which is where I met my husband. But when I was a kid, and it's funny because I just brought my angel onto my desk here. I have my Archangel Michael here. When I was a child, I always had connections with angelic spirits, angels, fairies. I didn't know like kind of who the entities were at the time. I knew there were entities around me, and I knew that there were some that felt good, and I knew that there were some that didn't feel as good. And I started probably around 8 or 9, really being able to do the clairvoyance, being able to see spirits, feel or sense them around me, and then sometimes hear them, although the hearing got better over time. But when I was younger, it was very scary because you don't know what it is. Nope, there's no guidebook. No one's telling you, what to do. And I remember feeling very frightened by it. So angels and fairies became kind of my protectors or guides. And I wouldn't talk to anyone about it, because if I talked to anyone about it, I would sound crazy. So instead, I just kind of internalized that, and knew that, okay, my angels are around me, or my fairies are around me, but I'm not going to tell anyone about that because I don't want to be the weird one. um, and I was telling you this the last time that we jumped on together, but I would also have this strange gift where uh, animals or birds or bugs would come to me when they were kind of dying, when they were transitioning, and I hated that too. I still hate that sometimes to this day, because I love life versus death. I'm very like light versus dark. I'm definitely more of the sun versus the moon energy, but I think that's because I have a very soothing energy about me. There's like a softness there, and I think that the animals and the birds and the bugs might come to me because they feel safe to transition, and I help them to feel that peace. So that's where the gifts kind of came from. And I did used to be able to see, spirits and ghosts. I would recognize that there were people that had passed on. Sometimes they'd be wearing clothing that you would know, well, clearly they're not.
Yeah, so you're talking about physically seeing them, not just not in your third eye, but you're talking about like physically actually seeing them.
I would see like, yeah, like sometimes it would start as like a shadow, and then sometimes it would form into something, and I would physically see something.
Well, okay.
And that's
And same with your fairies and your angels. You literally see them, not, and it's not the clairvoyance. Yeah.
the Aries, the fairies and angels are more like colors and swirls and energy feeling versus like a physical entity. But if when you talk about earthbound spirits and people that are their energy is physically here, yes, I will physically see their form. I will see what they're wearing. It might come through like a shadow or darkness first, and then it merges into what that person feels like, sees in my, yeah. I guess it's my third eye. I guess it's my mind's eye, because it's not physically in front of anyone else, but it's in front of me.
Now, like, do you remember the first time ever seeing one? Like, do you remember like the exact time where you're just like, oh my gosh, like this is a spirit. Like, this is insane.
I do.
And how old were you?
Yeah, I think I was probably about 7 or 8, and we were at my cousin's house, and they have this really big old farmhouse that's out in the middle of nowhere. And I remember we were kind of exploring. We were out in the woods, and I saw what I still call to this day the woman in red, because it was a woman and she was wearing red. But like I said, she was wearing clothes that you aren't wearing nowadays. That's why I knew it's not somebody who's just, happens to be on this random farm in the middle of nowhere in Kenya. So I saw her kind of walking by, and there were numerous occasions after that when I was a kid that I would be scared of certain areas at my cousin's house because I was scared of the woman in red.
Couldn't you? Did you get like a bad feeling from this woman in red?
I didn't get a bad feeling. I just knew that she shouldn't be there.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So why don't you tell, like, as far as like your definition, as far as like what is an earthbound spirit?
So earthbound spirits are those who sometimes might have difficulty transitioning to another place or reincarnate or wherever it is that they're going outside of being locked here on Earth. It usually is because of something traumatic that has happened to them. It could also be because they're unwilling to let go of certain things or unwilling to let go of this earthly plane, which it's interesting because even just you and I and us in our own life, there's so many things in our life where we have difficulty letting go of. Think about relationships you've been in. Think about jobs you've had or people that you've met or friendships that you've had difficulty letting go of. But now compact that with the fact that you don't have your physical body anymore. That's going to be a challenge. And I think that whole thing about me being able to be that transitionary, that I'm very open-hearted. I wear on my heart, my sleeve, and I think I have like a neon open sign on the top of my head, which I have had to learn how to turn off. Because over the years, that neon sign over my head could attract everyone. There was a time, this was before the incident that I'm going to talk to you guys about tonight. There was a time that I was driving down the highway and there had been a motorcycle accident. And I didn't know that, but I just saw this man standing on the side of the highway, covered in blood and looking really confused. Later on, I read in the news that that person had passed away in a motorcycle accident on the side of the road. I saw him before it was reported in the news. Well, because he's standing there, not knowing like where to go next. Transition.
Yeah. Wow. So, and I know that we went over this as far as like your fairies and your angels, but do you see other things that maybe aren't so light and love?
Yeah, so I see spirits. I mainly just see, like I said, the spirits who are in transition of passing on.
Okay.
I tend not to see creatures. I, thank God, have never seen a demon or anything like that. But I will see shadow, I'll see darkness. And sometimes when I see that kind of stuff, I'll also do the whole thing where I'm going to go ahead and turn my channel off now and back away. This experience that I had in the haunted house in Delaware was the first time that I felt really out of control with it. And it when you live somewhere, it's very different than when you visit somewhere and you can go away.
Right.
Or like when you're doing a mediumship and then you're going to decide when the session ends, when you're closing down. When you're surrounded by, spirits all the time and there's just no turning off, that's challenging.
100%. Now, I asked you this when we were having like conversations, like they didn't tell you that the place was haunted, and we also have to be a little careful with the way that we say things on here, and that there was a, unaliving there. So they didn't disclose that to you before you moved in, right?
Yeah, so it the unaliving didn't happen here, there at the physical place, but the physical place was that person's home.
Got it.
Yeah. So a lot of the times, earthbound spirits will return to places that are comfortable or are home, that they feel most comfortable with. Yeah.
So they don't necessarily stay in that particular area of like where it happened. They go back to a place like where they feel safe.
Right. Because the place where it happened is probably not a very happy memory or pleasant place, right? So they're more likely to go back to a comfort space. And this was, her home.
Understood. Now, within that space, as far as like, and you can tell us a little bit more about it, but like within that space, because she's at home, like, is she still like in that cycle of reliving that traumatic event, even though like she's at her home and safe space?
She was reliving things of her life for sure. And I was picking up on that. But there were several spirits that lived in this particular place. That's why I call it just a horrible vortex, because there was a male spirit who was really not nice and quite evil. And there was the female spirit who ended up being a famous case in Delaware that I found out about probably 2 weeks after we had moved in, when everything started really, really going. But yeah, there were several spirits there, and it was a very old house. It was built in, I believe, 1905. So it was an old house right by the Brandywine. It's still there. My daughter asked me about it the other day after I told her I was going to do this live. We looked it up. It's still there. It's still being rented out. So somebody could be there right now.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So why don't you walk us through? I know that you, as far as you can watch, you can see Paranormal Survivors and you can share a little bit more about it. But right as you moved in, I know that you had met, they had mentioned that the boxes started moving and stuff. So why don't you talk about like your experience as far as like once you moved in and what started happening? And was it immediate?
No, it wasn't immediate. So it was interesting because it was a Craigslist ad that we saw. And the realtor was really pushy on us to get to rent the house. I've never had somebody call me like insistently about renting a house. And in my weird way, I felt, but she really likes us and she really wants us to come and stay. And my husband was like, I guess. And so it was a really charming house. The house, it's like the apartment itself was very charming. It was one of 3 apartments that had been split in an older, row home kind of house. And it was really warm and inviting and cozy. But that weird feeling when it's like, is this a little bit too good to be true? Because it's big and it's spacious and, it's quiet. And the first time that something happened, I was by myself, which makes a lot of sense because if I was with my husband, I have like my protection, my soldier, my gear, but I was by myself and I was washing the dishes and I heard a rumbling next to me. And I wonder, is that a rat or something? Is it a mouse? You never know it's an old house.
Right.
I turned around and we had a bunch of boxes there and I saw the box that was open like this close itself with all 4 of the leaves kind of closing itself.
One at a time, not just like where they just all went in at the same time. And it was like simultaneously backing up and being like
somebody's gotta go. Yes, like you gotta go. All the hair in the back of my neck stood up, and I just ran out of the kitchen, ran out of the house in general. I got really creeped out by that. A few days after that, I was sitting alone again and I started smelling cologne. It was not my husband's cologne. It was some other cologne. And it also smelled like a combination of cigar smoke or cigarette smoke. Once again, not something from my husband. And my husband wasn't even here. So I was just sitting there going, somebody is here with me right now. And as you had known, this was my childhood gift. I have this kind of gift. I had turned it off for a very long time. I had said, I don't want to do this. I don't want to perceive this. I don't want to feel this. I just want to be a normal human living my normal life. But here was this strange entity that was in the room with me. I immediately knew it was a male, and I immediately felt strange. And once again, I ran out of the house. At this time, we had neighbors who were living downstairs. So those neighbors said, "Come have a drink with us, relax." They were laughing at me, and they said that this was not the first time. They were laughing because they were like,
This is a regular occurrence.
this happens.
Yeah.
So that led me to believe that the realtor did know about this.
Oh, 100%. Now, it only happens in your specific apartment? It doesn't happen in any others? Or did they experience it?
Yes, so that's what the neighbors were telling me. So they sat me down and they were telling me about the history of this house. So it's actually 6 apartments because it's one bigger building that's been split into 2. Our apartment on the 2nd floor shared a wall with this lady who used to live there in the 90s. Her name was Anne Marie Fahey. If you look it up online, you're going to find that it's a very big, significant murder case in Delaware. She was a very intelligent young woman, but she got caught up in an affair with a very strong political candidate, lawyer, very big figure man in Delaware. And he was married, and she got pregnant. And instead of, telling his wife and having a divorce and doing all the things that people do, which you should, he unalived her, and he took her out to the middle of the Delaware Bay, and she was never seen or heard of again. They believe that she's somewhere in the Delaware Bay right now.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this was the story that my downstairs neighbors were telling me over a beer after I run out the house, and they were laughing and saying, "Yeah, that's your apartment right there across from her." And I said, "Does anyone live there now? What's going on there?" They said, "You'll never believe it, but they never took any of her stuff. They just left it just the way it is. Like, somebody comes and collects mail there sometimes, but like, it's just the way it was, all the way into the 90s from the interestingly, I sometimes in the middle of the night I would hear as if the TV was on in there.
Okay.
And one time I went out because there was a nice little balcony, and we would go out on the balcony and we would look through the windows and we would see the TV was on static, just running by itself. So I would slowly start getting little hints of Anne Marie, who was there. But my biggest thing that was the connection between Anne Marie and I was that I had just gotten married. My husband and I had just gotten married. This is our first little place that was like going to be our little place and our kind of like, let's put our feet down. This is our spot. So I felt a connection to her because that's when I told you I see spirits. So one time, and then this was pretty scary, but I did see her come through the wall that was in my living room. And I saw her walk down the hall. I kind of was just frozen. In the fear flight response, I'm definitely more of the I'm going to freeze. So I was just frozen. And I watched her kind of walk down the hall in a very sad and somber way, kind of towards the light. And whenever she was around, I felt this really strong sadness about her. She was, we were playing our wedding videos with each other. We were celebrating our 1-year anniversary. We were having cake together. And I just felt like she was watching us, that she was thinking about a life that she might have had, and she didn't, and it was cut short. There was a healing energy about her being there and me being there because I think we needed each other in this strange way. Right after we had moved in, I'd gotten really sick. I was diagnosed with endometriosis, and I ended up having this surgery. I spent so many months like kind of recovering, and I was in that house a lot by myself. Yeah. And I think her healing and my healing were like combined. It is this letting go and moving on and, reclaiming ourselves as women. And so that was really beautiful. And I didn't have any issues with her being in the house with me. It was the other male energy that I could not live with. And is the reason that we actually ended up moving out of the house after 9 months. We did not stay the full. We broke the lease. Wow. We left.
Now, do you know who the male energy was? Did you ever physically see him? Did he make himself known?
I did physically see him. I still don't know to this day who he was. I did try and do some of my own research and just try to look and say, who lived here? Are there any records? Unfortunately, it has been rented for a long time, and you only see the people that bought it. So I don't actually know who it was, but it was. I could see from what he was wearing, it was kind of like maybe the 1920s, 1930s in the way that he was dressing, and he had one of these kind of like bigger rim hats.
Did he have a mustache or anything? And like
a mustache, the big rim hat. He was a bad guy. He was not a good guy. And he would kind of watch me when I was like undressing and stuff like that. I would feel kind of eyes on me.
Yeah.
You might have watched in Paranormal Survivor. There was a time when I was in the shower and I felt somebody playing with my hair and my hair was moving like this. They do a good job in the show of actually showing what it kind of did look like because my hair was moving. And that was extremely nerve-wracking for me.
You also, I mean, you're in the shower. I mean, it's not something that you're just like, hey, that's your private time,
Oh, it was an invasion. It's an invasion of privacy, and that's what I really felt is that he was doing a lot of invasion of privacy stuff with me. And a lot of the macho, like the macho get out of this house thing came from him. He probably did the folding of the box. There was another time when I had like kind of a Christmas lights up and he took the Christmas lights and threw them against the window, like almost like a poltergeist kind of thing. There was a lot of, get out of this house. This is my house.
Wow. Wow.
And my husband didn't believe for the longest time. I mean, he thought I was just losing my mind. He also got maybe it's something to do with the surgery or like you're taking some medicine or something. Maybe that's what it is. But then when he started experiencing it himself, then the tone changed. He would actually experience it more in dreams. And I always tell this to people too with dreams because dreams is the time when you can go into your subconscious and when you are not having that monkey mind that's kind of controlling. So you can kind of just, and so the land of spirit and the land of dreams can be closer. You can experience that more. And so he would have these dreams of this man, the same man I'm telling you about, like choking him. And he would wake up kind of gasping for breath, fighting with this guide at night. So when he started experiencing it too, then he said, okay, maybe she's not crazy. Maybe there is something going on, in this house.
He didn't really mess with him in the waking world, so to speak. He was only in his dreams that he was messing with him.
And I think it's also because Rob was not able to experience him in the way that I was experiencing him. He wasn't, he wasn't boom, 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 making loud noises or anything around Rob. He was doing it more around me. He was trying to intimidate as much as he could. He was trying to, I think he also, like I said, he was a bad man. I didn't feel like, I truly believe that everyone has a very strong intuition if we tune into it. If you feel like somebody's bad vibes, bad energy, something's off, trust it the first time. Don't trust it the second or the third time. Trust it the first time and remove yourself from the situation. That's where I gave it a shot. I really did. I started to do a lot of the spiritual things that I've learned online. I started with saging the place. I saged the place. I did salt. I did like the salt ring. I did all of that. I did candles. I did blessings. I brought my other spiritual friends to the house. They got even more. They got scared and said that they weren't going to stay there and wanted to leave. One friend, she was like sitting in the living room, and the broom like fell on her, like almost violently. And she was like, "Yeah, you do have spirits in here, and also I'm not staying the night."
Yeah, pretty obvious when something falls on your head like that. So, and a lot of misconceptions as far as like when you tell spirits. So, like, okay, the difference between earthbound and like regular spirits, right? So, earthbound spirits, you can't just tell them to leave, right? And they're going to leave. But regular spirits who have crossed over, you tell them to leave, they respect it. Yes.
Right, because there's a boundary, there's an understanding of, this is their earthly realm and their experience, and then this is where I am, in the spiritual realm. Most of the time, those people have moved on. They're in their good energy. They're good, like they're choosing to come back to have conversation with you. Earthbound spirits are not choosing to do that. A lot of the times, there's a disconnect. They might not even know why they're there. And that's the saddest part, I think, is when they don't know why they're there. That's really what I felt from Anne Marie. I felt like she was lost. I felt like she was wondering. She was looking for something, and she couldn't move on. You know,
Did you, so sorry, did you try to have a conversation with her as far as like, hey, like sharing your gifts with her and hopefully helping her cross over?
I did. I had numerous conversations with her about the pain that she had gone through, and the fact that it was important for her to move on, and she was still looking for that closure as far as what she would kind of say back to me. She was looking for something like, once this happens, then I can do this. And that's when I really felt like I can't be the one to help her. I was too close to it as well, because I was going through my own stuff and just gotten married and all this I was learning how to build my own boundaries, learning how to use the spiritual gifts stronger since I had turned them off for so long. So I felt like, I don't know if it's me. I don't know if it's going to be me who really is this one to help you transition over. But I know that I can be there for you, and I know that you're sad, and I know that it hurts. So there was a camaraderie between us, a softness there. And she was really beautiful. If you ever see her online, Anne Marie Fahey, she was a really beautiful girl, and just a really shame the way that she passed.
Now, did you talk to her about the spirit that was in the house, the other male spirit? Was she aware of his presence and who he was at all?
No, she didn't talk anything about anyone else, and she also would leave it very much about like, this is my apartment over here. And I kind of just traversed this apartment. So she would kind of make rounds. And the rounds would be come through my wall, go down my hallway, go back to her apartment. So she was kind of separate over there. The other weird thing about this apartment, and if anyone like lives there right now, I'd love for you to reach out to me, because I really want to know if other people are still experiencing that stuff there. But it had these weird closets that were like half closets that would come up to your waist or lower. But you could go in there and turn the light on, and it was almost like somebody was living in there.
Interesting.
But who would live in like a tiny little, it creeped me out. And my husband and I would sometimes, and this is when he started experiencing things more, would sometimes just see these little closets just open. The door would just open on their own.
Do you think it had anything to do with that darker man and spirit that he possibly kept, maybe smaller children, women in those tiny closets?
I do. You see, you're picking up on that too. I felt like there was some sort of, deviance about him, that he was a deviant, and specifically around women. There was something that he was doing, and that was why he liked to kind of do stuff with me, or just kind of like make me feel intimidated or make me feel scared, and liked that.
Yeah. Oh,
really bad good guy, not good energy. And those little closets, when we asked about them, when we were kind of like doing a little tour of the place, the lady was like, "You can keep like, you can use it as like a wine cellar, or you can." And we were like, "But it has like a light in, like it
yeah.
feels like someone's living in there."
But
Yeah, we were creeped out by that. It was not cool.
interesting.
The other thing that I did that I really love to do now as well is that I did a lot of chanting to help me feel grounded and safe. So the thing with earthbound spirits, like you said, is that they might not know why they're there and they might not want to leave. So there you might get yourself into a situation where now the spirit and you are in the same spot, and maybe it affects your mindset as well. It started affecting my husband's mindset, started affecting mine. So we started to be like, now we were being even more cautious. Maybe we need to get out of here because it's affecting us now mentally. But I like to create safe zones for myself. And this is the thing about creating boundaries. Um, Safe zones are, the way that I do it is I'll do some chanting. So I'll chant to like a particular god or goddess. I work with a lot of goddesses. Like I use one of these goddesses is Saraswati. She's an Indian goddess, creativity. Um, but you can even do like affirmations where you're saying like I'm protected by the divine light or whatever it is that you want to say, and you say an affirmation and you say a chant or you say the words over and over and over again. You can do them over 100 times, 108 times. Just do it over and over and over so that you're creating in your mind a repetition. In that repetition, you can't be in a space of fear because you're just in that space of repetition, repetition, repetition. And while you're doing that, you can create energetic boundaries for yourself. And these energetic boundaries are kind of like your wall or your gate where you're saying, I, the open sign for business is closed. You cannot. You cannot talk to me. You cannot invade my personal space. You are not welcome in this safe zone that I have now created. I wish I felt stronger in myself when I was doing all of this, but I was sick.
Yeah.
And my husband was struggling as well. He had lost his job. So between the two of us, we were not strong mentally and physically. That's the time when these earthbound spirits can jump on you the most because you don't have your reserves. You're not in your strength. And so they infiltrate.
And take advantage 100%. That's why a lot of the times, especially like when I'm sick or whatnot, I don't do mediumship readings because I'm like, I'm not 100%. And also, I don't want to get any type of interpretations wrong or, like if I'm just, if my shields are down or whatnot, I don't want anything to come in and, suck off the energy. So I totally understand that as far as like what you're talking about. And especially when you're going through all that, especially with endometriosis, because it's from what I don't have it, but I understand it can be incredibly painful. And really, I mean, because we as women can tolerate a lot of pain. So if you're even in more so pain, is really, and then having to deal with that, especially with such a hateful, you know, like really evil entity, like as far evil spirit that you're dealing with. So, and I can't believe, I'm sure you're is scared too, because, like that adds on to it as far as like, not only, are you not feeling well, you're not 100%, and then this is happening and you're scared.
Fear is such an interesting thing because it sits right in your solar plexus. It sits right here in your stomach. And that's what I was feeling so much was just the combination between what was going on in my sacral chakra and all the stuff with the endometriosis. And then the stuff right here that was just sitting here is like this gut feeling that something's wrong, this gut feeling that like, I don't know about this place. And I think that we are a product of our environment. I think that if you don't like where you're living, you should leave.
Well, yeah.
Stay in haunted houses and stay well and you want it. This it is. Well, maybe it is. And if so, maybe you should consider getting it cleared out. Oh,
Yeah, I was. Did you have to plug yourself back in again?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah. It's so weird. It sounds like a whooshing, like there's like traffic or something going by, and then it's like in and out. It's so interesting.
Spirits.
Oh, I'm like, maybe I'm like, is something out trying to like interfere, like where it's just like whoosh, like with whatever you're saying.
Yeah. No, it's it's fine. But that's the thing. It's just like protecting your energy and choosing the environment that you're in because if you see plants, right? Plants will thrive in places that like where people sing to them or there's sunlight or there's art around, or and then you see plants that are just, in UV lighting and everyone's ignoring them and they're on the side of a busy highway. They're not thriving, they're not happy, and we, not to say that we're plants, but we're living, beings, and we get to decide, homes that are good for us. So I'm very happy with the new home that I live in now. We when we moved to Florida for 10 years, which was great, just what we needed to kind of just completely reset and do all over again. But now we live in Maryland and in what I call my angel home because it always feels like the angels are around me here. It's almost exactly what I kind of imagined or manifested in my mind, and just so much happier where I'm living now. And that really makes all the difference.
That's really important. Now, going back to when you're talking about like where you felt it, like right in here, a lot of people talk about, especially when you first meet someone, feeling the butterflies. And the butterflies are not a good thing. That is your sign to you need to go. You need to leave. You do not like the butterflies are like, oh my gosh, I saw him and I got butterflies. Girl, run. Right?
Yeah, because your gut is always speaking to you. Like there's a really strong connection between your gut and your third eye and your brain. So your gut is always speaking to you. Whenever I have a bad feeling, and I always have, if I'll have a bad feeling before something happens, I know something's going to happen before it happens. It's always immediately in my gut. I know something's going to happen, and so like listen to your gut. Gut instincts is a real thing. And if, especially like if you're feeling weird in the gut about somebody, an actual person, maybe that person's not for you.
100%. I can't even tell you how many times where I have ignored that and it didn't turn out very great. And it was just like, well, there was that warning, and I just thought it was like, oh, it's because I'm excited. It was before I had jumped on my spiritual journey and went down the rabbit hole and learning all these things. But thank you so much. So it was more of like, oh yeah, I know. It's like I'm so excited. And it just now, if I ever feel that again, I'm just gonna be like, thank you very much and goodbye. Like
Yeah.
you're not welcome in this energy field.
Yep. Yep.
So as far as, like turning it on and off, you're being able to physically see the spirits. Do you have any practices that you do to turn it on and any practices or things that you do to turn it off?
That's an interesting question. I've never been asked that one before. Yeah, I think that the things that I do to turn it on are just to tune back into my physical body and tune back into kind of my soul. I think we live in a very distracted world, so it's very easy to, I mean, you can scroll on TikTok for hours. It's a great way to take yourself out, not take yourself in. So instead of focusing outward, you can spend your time focusing inward. The way that I do that mainly is through meditation. But in order to get to meditation, I have to move my body because a lot of people will say to me, "Well, Suki, I can't meditate. I don't know how to meditate. I can't sit still long enough." Neither could I. I was exactly that person, and I'm that person that has a very active brain, very active imagination, very active. It goes, it goes, it goes, it goes, it goes. 3 o'clock in the morning, as they call the witching hour, is my time because I have to grab a pen and paper and write all that stuff down, and I'll tell spirit, I'm like, thank you, but could you tell me this at 3 p.m., not 3 a.m., because it's a lot of stuff. But in order to tune back in and to get into that meditative state, I do a lot of things to like work my body out. I'll go on a walk, or I'll do some yoga, or I'll dance, and I'll do some like high active dance. I'll put on some like early 2000s tunes and just like dance it out because you have to wiggle and get all of the wiggles out of your body in order to sit. And when I was in yoga teacher training, I did a 4 hour silent meditation. That was the best thing I ever did. If you can sit with yourself, and I wouldn't tell you to do it for 4 hours, but if you could sit with yourself for 20 minutes in silence, so many things will come up and so many feelings. You'll get to like actually be with yourself. And we live in this super distracted world, but like there are messages from your soul, from your spirit team that want to come through, but you're not spending that time kind of fine tuning the gift. So to turn it on, you have to be with yourself. Sometimes being with yourself can be uncomfortable, but you can push through and you can kind of do it and challenge yourself to push through it. They call it like a calcified third eye. So the third eye is where you're able to kind of receive messages from the universe, from spirit, from your angel or spirit team. And when it's calcified, it's because you're spending too much time in thought, ego thought. You know, what do I need to do next? Or what do I wear? What's the person thinking about me? Or, worrying about your job or worrying about your significant others. This is not in your third eye. This is in your in yoga, we call it the monkey mind.
Right.
To get to your third eye is to clarify those thoughts. And that's why meditation is so important, because it's clarifying the thoughts to get to the spirit. And some of us like have more gifts, like stronger gifts than others. I think we all have gifts. Some of us have stronger gifts than others. That's where people maybe like you and I have had this connection with spirit since we were kids. We feel something. So we know it's there. So it's like a bicycle. You keep riding it, you get back on it. But for people who say, I never seen it or never felt that, it's a tune into your gift. It's a slow turn that. So with the turning it off is something slightly different. It's when I connect with my spirit guides and I just say, spirit guides, angels, all my protectors, I am choosing to turn this off right now. I do not want to see. I do not want to feel. I just need to be with myself right now, physically on this earth. So I ask them to go ahead and just put all the gates up. Suki's not available. And I did that for so long that it's kind of an easier thing for me to track back into sometimes, to just be turned off. But that doesn't help me because I need to be turned on to the spirit, to the messages for myself too, not just for other people.
Absolutely. So as far as like your, like who you were before you entered the house and then how you were after the house, how do you feel that the house changed you, and like what good things you feel came out of it, and like what not? Obviously, I mean, the horrible experience is the bad thing that happened, but as far as like, was there anything else negative that you felt stayed with you?
Yeah. So living in the haunted house for 9 months was a spiritual journey for me of understanding, first of all, that my gifts were important and that I could use these gifts to help other people. It actually led me down a journey to start doing readings for others, doing mediumship readings. One summer I did of service. I actually didn't charge anyone anything. And I did 40 readings over that summer. And I just did it of service. I just wanted to give back. It made me realize, why had I turned these gifts off for so long? Because I could have been helping people, but I was just so scared of it. And I was just so discombobulated by it that I would rather have just run. It was an avoidance technique. So by turning it back on, I was able to help people. I was able to help myself. And I think that it was also a journey for me of going from darkness to light. I was in a really dark place with the endometriosis. I had been sick for so long, and I had been misdiagnosed for 9 years. I kept saying to the doctors over and over, just something wrong with me. I know there's something wrong with me. And they would say, take this birth control pill, take that birth control pill. And they were just, it was all avoidance. So living from avoidance and darkness into light was like that reconnection with my body, reconnecting and understanding something is wrong with you, but you're going to get through it and you're strong. And realizing that I was stronger than I looked, because when we left, there was just such a sense of victory. I didn't take anything with me. I know some people take things with them. I didn't take anything with me. I had this really strong sense of, this is you and this is your stuff that you're going through in this house. I'm not participating in this anymore. And our health is more important than any of this. So we are gone. It was magical to leave that day.
I love it. I bet. So what advice would you give to anyone who is currently living in that situation right now, as far as like what to do or how to deal with it?
Yeah, I think it's really important to set boundaries, and understand what your boundaries are, what you find acceptable and what you don't find acceptable, and write those things down. For me, I had written it down, and it got to a point where I said, this is not acceptable. If I feel there's a spirit in the bathroom with me, in the shower, playing with my hair, that was definitely the final straw for me, because I'm not accepting that. So you write down your boundaries, you write down what you accept and what you can't accept. So for example, maybe some people can accept if they have a spirit in their house who's not necessarily, quote unquote, an evil spirit. You know, I actually have a client right now that I work with who has a poltergeist spirit in her house.
Right.
But it's not an evil spirit. It's an old man who used to live there before, and he refuses to leave. He wants to live there. And so she's accepted it. She's okay with that. You know, for me, I was living with spirits that were not respecting my boundaries in any way. So I wasn't going to respect theirs. I was going to leave. The second thing to do is to create kind of, you know, depending on your practices and what you do personally, you know, some people do protection spells, some people do prayers, some people do chanting. Whatever works for you will kind of start to create your spiritual practices that build up your boundaries, your energetic boundaries, so that they can't, you know, penetrate those boundaries for yourself. And lastly, I would just say it's just so important to keep on coming back to yourself. Meditation, you know, healing practices, coming back to your own center. I was talking to my husband about this yesterday, but this thing in the stomach here where we have this gut instinct and all this kind of stuff, your stomach and your solar plexus here is your anchor. It's the thing that connects you to you being a human here in this earth. So you can connect to this part of yourself and you can heal and bless that part of yourself. I think so much of the time we just drift right through life and we're not thinking about what's actually going on in our physical bodies. Just the other day, my coworker got really sick right here in her stomach. And it's because she had internalized all the toxic stuff that had been going on at work over the past couple weeks. And I talked to her and she hadn't even made a connection in her mind that it was the workplace and the toxicity of it that was sitting in her stomach and is now making her go and have all these tests and is sick right now, you know? So it's like that. Don't hold things in your stomach. Be cognizant and be aware, bring awareness to your body when your body's talking to you. For me, for endometriosis, it's so weird, but it's a blessing. My anxiety has been a blessing. Endometriosis has been a blessing because all of these things taught me to reconnect with my body, not disconnect, not run away, not avoid, but come back to your body's telling you something. What's your body saying? And that's what I've learned over the years. Just keep listening.
Very nice. Thank you. And so as far as like for all the energetic protections, it's like for earthbound and for, you know, ones just regular spirits, are they similar or are there like different ones that you can do for particular ones? Or is it, like you said, it's you just build your practice And
I think you
what is,
build your yeah, you also you gotta like build your little toolbox and build your practice and find what's right for you. But earthbound spirits are going to come at you differently than regular spirits is the best way I can say it. When you or I do like a session and do a mediumship reading, we open the floor. We say, hello, I'm opening the floor and I am looking for a particular person or a group of people and I'm welcoming, you know. There's no welcoming with earthbound spirits. They're walking in, they're doing as they please, or they're completely disconnected and don't even know why they're there or what's happening and why I can see them but other people can't see them. That kind of stuff. So they're very different in the way that you interact with them, but it's the opening and closing of space that I hope that I can help people understand today. That open space is really important. When you open space, and actually this is really important because we were talking about this in chat the other day, you and I, with boundaries, right? When you open space, sometimes you need to also be aware that you're opening space for it could be anything. It could be, and somebody, if you're somebody like you and I who's like super open, it could be anything comes in the door.
yeah,
So if you don't have the spiritual practices within yourself, you don't have the boundaries, you don't have that strength, or you don't have that, hey, get the heck out of here.
yeah,
I didn't call you, get out. That kind of thing. That wasn't me. I had to like build that voice up because I
100% same. Same. Even still, yeah, no, I had to do the exact same thing. And even I learned the hard way as far as like building up my practices and stuff. Because sometimes, and you're going to be like, oh, Stephanie. Um, I would, and this was recently about like almost like a month and a half ago. I just walked in and I was like, all right, I'm going to do mediumship and just turned on live and did it. And then I was down for 5 days. And then there's other times like I would just, didn't have those practices and I would be drained for 5 days. And I'm like, why is this so draining for me? And then once I started cleansing, protection, circles, this, that, and got into my groove, like I'm able to do at least, through 2 or 3 readings and be completely fine, and not exhausted. And then, obviously, you're depending on the person, you listen to your body where it's just like, no, we're not going to tap in anymore. We're done before we get exhausted, right? But I wasn't listening to those boundaries within my own body or anything else, and would be down for 5 days and just be absolutely exhausted. So it is absolutely. I tell people all the time it's so important to not ignore your boundaries, to make sure that you're setting them and using your voice because it's so important.
this is you're doing exactly what I did in 2014 to 2015. I was on Periscope. And this was right when I was pregnant with my first daughter. And Periscope was huge live streaming before everywhere else, all the other social networks started doing live streaming. So I was on Periscope and I was doing a lot of these free angel readings, free no, no. It would be whoever's coming in,
Right.
we're doing it. Now, I have learned myself from burning myself out time and time and time again. I even tried to do it one time at a bar, where you rent like a space, and I was doing the readings and stuff like that. I cannot. I get overstimulated. It is too much, and I will get completely burnt out. So it's the thing about the door open. Once you open the door, if I open a door and 100 people walk in for a reading with me, which I would love to do, I cannot do it.
100%.
I can, but physically it will kick my butt at the end of it. So there's only now I'm very selective with who it is that I'm going to do readings with and when I'm going to do readings and how I'm going to do readings. I'm also very selective because I used to people would call me or message me or try to contact me morning, noon, and night. I would have one person in particular where I had to completely cut off energy boundaries with her. I had done some like healing and coaching with her over time, but she would call me like 13 times in an hour.
Oh,
I was like, no, no, I'm not doing that. And that's not the way that you approach me. It's that there's a sacredness to it, you know? It's an honoring, there's a divinity to it. So we open the channel, we choose to do it. You honor me and I honor you. There's an exchange. There's also, you know, sometimes a monetary exchange or an energy exchange where you give and I give and we put it into the thing together. So I don't do that anymore, and I don't recommend that to people where if you don't have your strong energy boundary set, or you know how you interact with spirit and how you prefer to uh, deliver that information to people.
Well,
You know, I'd actually rather nowadays do live streams where I just give, here's a channeled information that my spirits are saying me. Here's all the stuff that's for the collective. And 10 minutes later, I'm offline. I'm putting my kids to bed and I'm going to sleep, you know? So it's whatever works for you. Some people, and some people can really do it, but you've got to do it the right way.
100%, 100%. Like I said, I learned the hard way. And if it's a no, it's a no.
Yeah.
Like if it's an, you know, like you just, it's as simple as that. It's a no. So, do you want to open up for questions for people to see if they have any questions, like in the chat?
Yeah.
So if you have any other questions for me or Suki to answer, please let us know in the chat.
Yeah, I saw Echo had asked something about are shadows bad, and that's a good question because no, they are not. That's shadows are not bad. Shadows for me are just the beginning of me being able to see an entity. So it might be there's a shadow. There's a shadow, and then I look deeper, and now I'm looking, and I'm looking again, and now I can kind of see something. So it's like a whoosh, it goes by. And then now, on the other hand, shadows can be dark or evil in their energy. But I try not to assign an energy to someone or something until I really know who I'm dealing with. Because I think we live in a world where we're always talking about good and bad and evil or this. And sometimes people are evil, but they don't even know they're. You know what I mean? They don't even know. Think about all these narcissistic exes of people here, and they don't even know they're narcissistic. They don't even know the stuff.
I know a bunch of them. I know a bunch of those. Yeah, 100%. And that's so as far as like, so let's just say, well, for just assigning for clarity as far as like good and, you know, like we'll just say negative. We won't say evil or anything.
Yes.
We'll just say negative. What is the feeling like in your body? Is it the butterflies that you feel like in your gut where you're just like, nope? Or how, because again, everyone's is the same, but for you,
it's immediately in my gut, yes. But then sometimes I also feel it in my head. I'll feel like a ringing in my head, or a lightheadedness, or like a sharp pain in my head. And that's usually when also that person can be an overthinker, thinks a lot, or has negative thoughts. They present themselves with negative thoughts, and then I feel that in their head.
interesting.
I feel a lot of things in my body, but
Me too.
part of like connecting with our bodies, right, is that we need to like feel it in the body. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions for us before we sign off? We'll give it a minute. Sometimes there's like a little bit of lag, but thank you so much for coming on here and chatting with me. I'm so glad we connected. I'm glad we figured out like the time thing, because I was like, I had a feeling, but I also just wanted to make sure. I was just like, I hope everything's okay. I'm like, I know she's got kids, so it could be something like with the kid, you know, like, because then I just started to get into like the fear aspect of it. But you know, like when I look back on it, I already knew. You know, I was just like, yeah, I already knew that she already had like messed up the time. But then I got, and I was like, oh, well, what if she had, you know, like, what's this and this? And then I got my, like,
you picked up on all the right things, because it actually was the time difference, but it's also because my daughter had my phone. My battery is low right now. She's running around with my phone. So you picked up on it. It's nothing to do. You saw like all week. I've been so excited to have this.
I know you were talking. I'm like, there's no way. I'm like, she's been telling me that she's been so excited about this. We've been looking forward to this. And I'm like, either she got the time wrong or something
I don't
happened.
know why I thought it was 10. And then by the time I grabbed my phone, I was like, oh my God, it's like 10 past 10. And oh, it was supposed to be at 9. I was like, oh my God.
You're welcome, Echo. Thank you so much for being here. Like, if anyone else has like any other questions for either of us, um, as far as now, you know what? Actually, Suki, I have one more question for you. Do you feel that, like, because for me, and this could just be for me personally, and who knows if others may be interested in doing this, because I've always wanted to physically see spirits. I've only been able to see them within my mind's eye. So, do you feel that people can develop that, or do you feel like it's just something that you know and you're able to turn on and off?
No, I think you can develop it. When I started doing the meditation was when I started getting a lot more clarity of the way spirits would look. Um, Even though I did see them when I was a kid, like the form becomes kind of stronger just when I was saying about that decalcifying that third eye. But I specifically asked my spirit team, which we all have, energies that walk with us and protect us. So I asked them to help me to see.
Okay.
And you can say, help me to see, or you can ask, spirit, the universe, God, whoever you work with, you can say, I want to see.
Over.
I want to see, I want to visualize. You can also start doing a lot more things with your own expression of visualization. So coloring or painting or doing things more physically where you're able to, because what I find that a lot of people can describe things like you're saying with the third eye, but to see it more visually, they say, well, I'm not that visual of a person. I'm less of a visual person or something like that. That's just like with riding a bike. You get on and you make some headway with it. I think you can fine tune it.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I do remember, like, because when starting on my spiritual journey and starting back in 2021, when I was, with my ADHD and getting, like doing like the hyper focus and doing meditations every day, I would see like where I thought I was losing my mind, sparkles. Like it's usually like right before, like sometimes like if you pass out, like before like the white light, you see like the sparkles. But I was like, and I'd be sitting, like going to the ladies' room and I'm looking and I'm like, oh, there's some sparkles over there. And I just start laughing because I'm like, maybe I'm losing my mind. Like, like, or maybe, and then of course, like with the hypochondria, I could be like, maybe I have a brain tumor. So now I'm realizing, as far as like where I meditated every day, like that was probably, I was starting to see more.
Yeah, I was going to tell you that's exactly how they started with me. So they start to this day, they still start with sparkles. I will usually see a sparkle behind somebody. I'll see a color. I'll see like purple, blue. Now, okay, now, oh, yellow. Oh, I'm seeing something. Oh, somebody's behind that person. Like, and that's.
I just saw that today over my dog. Like I would literally right before we were coming back on here, I went upstairs. My boyfriend and I were watching TV, and then all of a sudden, my dog was right here, and I saw like this streak of purple, and I was like, what is that? Like, I was like, what is that?
Yep. Those are spirits or spirit energy. Like you start seeing that, and then I see like smoke or fog or shadow, which is why I said like it starts with the sparkle, then enters into the shadow. Then you can kind of start seeing like the actual, faces. Usually start seeing with the eyes because eyes are very powerful. So you'll see the eyes first, and okay, see the rest of them. And this is when I have to tell myself I'm not crazy, because my mom and my parents would be, oh, you have a very active imagination, Suki.
Of course.
You're making it up, you know? And I had to unlearn that for so long because I thought I was making it up. And the reason I turned off my guests was because I thought I was going crazy. I thought, I'm going to be judged by this. Still to this day, if someone was to record this live stream, send it to people at my work, I'd be like, yeah, I talk to spirits and.
Well, 100%. And do you find that like when you tell people like what you do, you either get the people that are like, oh my gosh, I love it, or the people that are like, cool. You get it's those two types, no in between. That's it. There's no in between.
There's no in between.
There's no in between. There's other people that are
But
like,
your vibe is your tribe, you know. You're always like you're always going to attract the people who are like the people. As soon as I saw your video and you was like, I'm looking for people that mediums that talk to Ursa, I was like, she is my vibe. Like immediately, like yes, I would absolutely love to talk to her. You know.
and what was so funny is that like I had come across your video on like just TikTok or whatever, and I was just like, oh, I like her, and I hit follow, and it was before, and then that video came out of me, and somehow you saw it,
Yes.
and I was just like, I'm like, the universe organized this. I'm like, oh, come on.
We know who was it. We know who was that play.
Right, 100%. Oh, they're just like, all right, we're gonna make you see her first, and then she's gonna see you. So, but yeah, thank you so much for doing this. We had you on for about an hour. I don't want to take too much of your time. It's probably already 11:30 there. But yeah, do you have anything else that you feel that you want to share with people?
Yeah, I think just to trust yourself, like trust yourself and trust your own judgment, your own inner feelings, your body, kind of your body's wisdom, your own ancient wisdom, because we all carry ancient wisdom with us. This what we're doing now is the product of all the women that came before us, who, by the way, were all called witches and were all, you know, burned at the stake. Just so you know, that's the lineage, that's who we're coming from, and it's only because society was scared of women's powerful voices and women tuning into their spiritual gifts. And this is the time right now where we have to like really tune into our spiritual gifts and really speak our truth and stand up for each other, like support each other as women. That's what I really feel right now is just continue to keep supporting each other, continue to trust yourself, listen to your ancient wisdom because it's not gonna take you the wrong way.
100%. And you know what? You know what's so funny is even starting out on this spiritual journey for myself because I'm a practicing witch. I'm open to whomever, as I feel like everything is right as long as it's done out of love. So whatever you practice, as long as it's done out of love, I feel like it's correct. So for me, but having that fear of coming out, like even just that, as far as like the lineage that you're talking about, I was afraid of like even speaking about this stuff because I'm like, again, same with you, like what are people going to think? Like they're going to be like, oh, she's a witch or this and that, so I totally understand and resonate like with what you were saying there, where you're just like, I mean, people know now because I've always been interested in it or whatever. And my sister would always say to me, she's like, I was scared of you in like junior high. And I'm like, well, she must have known something. Must have felt something. Uh, but thank you so, so much again for sharing everything and sharing your story and helping me and everyone here to understand like earthbound spirits as far as like the difference between like regular spirits and earthbound spirits. Really appreciate you staying on here. And thank you all so much for hanging out with us and listening. And thank you so much. I truly appreciate you. And if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, I'm my website is sookton.com. It's sookton.com, or on Instagram or here on TikTok, both at Sookton, Sookton. It's actually the name that my husband gave me. It's like his pet name. He calls me his Sookton. So my real name is Suki, but Sookton is like my pet name, and that's how I go on the internet as Sookton.
Love it. Well, perfect. Thank you so, so much, Akari. Then you and I will connect. I truly appreciate you. So thank you so much. And thank you all for hanging out with us and listening to us talk for the past hour. Truly appreciate it, you all. Thank you so much.